The NBA season is a long, arduous grind, and along the way, every team, player, and member of the organization will experience plenty of highs and lows. The key to a successful season is being able to bounce back from any adversity thrown your way and maintaining consistency once dealt with it. Because of this, you shouldn't be anointing players or teams that get off to hot starts at the beginning of the year as the next big thing until they prove it for a longer period of time, and alternatively, the same applies to teams that get off to slow starts, as you definitely shouldn't write them off until those struggles prove to be a more long-term thing they have to deal with. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be discussing a team who, without question, dealt with a ton of adversity and disappointment early in the year, but are now arguably the single hottest team in the league, trending in the right direction at the perfect time, with that team of course being the Miami Heat. We'll be going over what caused their slow start, how they were able to turn things around in such dramatic fashion, and what we should realistically expect from them going forward. Before we start though, it turns out about 65% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The Miami Heat were an incredible story last season as they proved every doubter wrong that claimed that Jimmy Butler made a mistake by going there, and by the end of the season made an amazing run to the NBA Finals before ultimately getting eliminated by LeBron and the Lakers. Their chemistry was on point, their defense was stout, some of their younger players took massive strides as the season progressed and exceeded all expectations people possibly could have had for them, and the emergence of Bam Adebayo alongside Jimmy Butler as an all-star caliber player made the team a real force to be reckoned with. After making such a deep run last year, obviously they entered this season with pretty high expectations, and even given the good things they did last year, people were still skeptical of whether or not they could repeat it. When you make a finals appearance, obviously you're going to be pegged as one of the favorites for the next year, and performing at any level less than that is seen as a disappointment. So when the Heat started slowly as they did this year, the masses were ready to pounce. In their opening few games, they had some good wins like against the Bucks, but also some bad losses like against the Magic on opening night, and in their first 8 games, they were only 500 with a 4-4 record. Not a great start, but not a bad start. Then everything started to go downhill when some of the members of the Heat got caught with the COVID pandemic. Whether it was actually getting the illness themselves or having to miss extended time due to contact tracing purposes, and their biggest loss was obviously their leader Jimmy Butler, who has already missed 14 games this season. On top of that, almost every other key player in the team's rotation missed an extended period of time as well, as Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro, Goran Dragic, and Avery Bradley amongst many others have all missed quite a few games as well early this season. So after their mediocre start to the season overall, this was a crushing blow, and what followed was the Heat sinking in the standings quickly. In a 10-game stretch after that 4-4 start, the team only managed to win 2 of those games while losing the other 8, and all of a sudden, they had one of the worst records in the Eastern Conference. Even after Butler and most of the others returned to the court, things didn't immediately improve necessarily, as they then suffered back-to-back losses to the Hornets and Wizards, and at that point, they were 7 games below 500. At this point, there were a lot of people ready to come at them, and the notion that their prior season was fraudulent and that they were now getting exposed was running rampant on social media. Sure, there was obvious reason to be concerned about them and how their season was going, but being bold enough to claim something that extreme was always going to prove to be a massive overreaction, because there was still so much time left in the season, and any team that loses that many key players for an extended stretch is going to struggle, even when those players initially return, because they have to get their chemistry and mojo back when they get out on the court, and stuff like that builds up over time. Now, this brings us to the reason that this video is being made, because ever since that point where they were 7 games below 500, they have been one of the hottest teams in the whole league. Over their last 18 games, they've won 14 of them, losing just 4, and specifically in their last 10 games played, they have a record of 9 wins and 1 loss, which is matched only by the Brooklyn Nets in that span of time for the best record in their last 10 games. The Nets have been clicking on all cylinders, and with the amount of talent on their roster, they have rightfully been getting tons of attention as a genuinely dangerous contender, with a real chance to win it all. The Heat's win streak, however, has been flying much more under the radar, and I think it's about time we start talking about the reigning Eastern Conference champions and taking them seriously again, because the team we were watching to start the season off is clearly not the same team that we're seeing right now. The Heat's success has always stemmed from their defense. Jimmy Butler has always been a stout perimeter defender, and Bam Adebayo has become one of the most impactful and versatile interior defenders that can switch onto almost any player and hold his own comfortably that the league has to offer. So starting with those two, the tenacity rubs off on those around them, and everybody buys in on that end of the floor. Not every player in the rotation is necessarily a great defender by any means, as players like Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson are notably poor defenders that tend to get targeted by opposing players. But when the team is locked in, everybody, including those two, play extremely hard and hustle, and that can go a long way. Right now, the Heat are ranked as a top 5 defense in the league, which was certainly not always the case after their slow start. The fact that they've been able to get back to dominating on that end of the court again is a huge reason why they've been finding so much success. On top of that, they've gotten impressive wins over the Jazz recently, who have the best record in basketball at the moment, as well as a nice win over the Lakers in a bit of a revenge game from last year's finals. The Heat now sit in 4th place in the Eastern Conference standings, and I don't think any of the teams above them in the standings would want to face them in a second-round matchup. Bam Adebayo is playing even better than he did a year ago, and in my opinion, was the biggest snub from this year's All-Star game, because I think he's definitely been better than Domantas Sabonis and Nikola Vucevic, and Jimmy Butler has quietly been playing his way into MVP conversation. I'm not saying Butler should be the favorite for the award by any means, but the voters for that award do list their top 5 candidates for the award when they submit their ballots, and I could definitely see Butler getting some 3rd, 4th, and 5th place votes if the Heat's hot streak continue. Basically, to conclude this video, the lesson here is to not overreact to good teams getting off to slow starts. Whether or not the Heat can make it back to the finals is obviously an entirely different topic, but whether they do or do not do that, their run last year was clearly not a fluke. They've built a solid core of players with assets at their disposal that they could possibly use to get even better, and they'll definitely be a tough out come playoff time. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the Heat moving forward. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.